for you, what makes, the trail running community so special?
Good question. Not an easy one to answer. I think it's just like everything. I think there is just this, especially in Cape Town. I don't know if it is in pockets of the world, but it's not like this where I've been. The crew culture is big and it just brings people together from all different backgrounds.
Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Dean Horwitz, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Each week, we'll be hitting the trails with some of South Africa's most inspiring trail runners, diving into the topics that matter most and uncovering the secrets of this incredible sport. Lace up your trail shoes and join me on this adventure. New episodes every week. How's it, Becky?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome to the Trail Chasers, finally.
How many months?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like... Yeah, I think in the beginning, like I had an idea of what I wanted the podcast to be, and I wanted it obviously to be very like Cape Town focused, but also like very like beginner focused, and like being like a real introduction to trail running in Cape Town. And then I guess I didn't really think that like the kind of pros would actually be interested, and then they did. So I had a lot of pros interviews with pros. But I'm now getting back to why I started it. And I think you kind of, you are kind of like the ideal person, the ideal interview person that I would like to have, You've kind of been involved. I think I was thinking about how to kind of sum it up. And I remembered I was at an event recently where the organizers were talking just amongst themselves, and they were like, we're so glad that Becky's involved. And like that, I was like, yeah, because you're just like, you get it.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. So I think that kind of like sums it up, that I think, and, you just get what is happening in the community, and you're able to kind of represent that, tell that kind of story, which is amazing. And then it was quite interesting when you kind of said that I asked you what you kind of want to chat about, and you were like, you're trying to intertwine everything together to tell a story. So it seems like there's definitely a theme there. So tell me about stories. What do you love about the stories and the written word?
Well, the written word specifically is the core of what I've done throughout my career. So copywriting is what I started doing.
Yeah.
In the first year of work as I know it, and it's snowballed into creative outlets here and there, into now establishing storytelling around almost everything that I try and do within work.
Yeah.
And the written word specifically, I think, is one of the most underrated, utilized but underrated tools.
Yeah.
And choosing specific words can hit a different meaning than choosing other words. Even if it means the same thing, it doesn't hold the same tone.
Yeah.
And I value words. Sometimes better at them on paper than in person. Storytelling, I think, is also like the foundations of what we are as people. Yeah. It's what we've got that we've always had. And tapping into that is like you see it play out in media everywhere where it's really effective is the storytelling.
Yeah.
So.
And then obviously, from the written stuff, you've kind of graduated to the photography and videography. And it was interesting you said that you're getting there with the video things.
Yeah.
But your videos, I think, again, it comes back to that you have the ability to tell the story. And you're obviously, that. So what did you say getting there? What's the thinking?
There's just so much learning to happen still. I don't feel like I've put a lot of time into videography, into editing. And I know that I know a little, like maybe this much, and there's this much to know.
Yeah.
So getting there, I really enjoy it. Okay. And I think it's super fun.
You can see you enjoy it. I like to always kind of start these interviews, usually with the kind of elites and to get them to talk about their kind of pre-race, just envision that they're kind of like on the start line or, like getting ready for a race or the night before. And I think it's quite interesting with you. Obviously, you can talk from that experience because you've been there, but also, you can talk from the experience of being behind the scenes. So what does the start line of a race look like, I guess, from both sides? And what are the kind of rituals and things, that is there kind of like a way you kind of get yourself into that frame of mind?
I'm trying to think through it now.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Things like all my batteries are charged.
Yeah.
All my chargers are packed.
Yeah.
It's a mistake I've made once.
Yeah.
And I lost my charger actually while racing and while covering media.
Yeah.
And I guess learning from those mistakes. So the rituals before racing, it's hard to pinpoint when you're not in the
zone,
in the environment. So
Yeah.
like it's always like quirky stuff like left sock, right sock, left shoe, right shoe. And I think those things transcend into all athletes.
Yeah.
And it depends how close you are to the start line, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the week leading into it, trying to channel focus and not get stressed. Both running and covering, always easier said than done.
Yeah.
Specifics I can't really talk to too easily.
How do you kind of balance that between the, work or the covering of the event and running the event, and specifically when you're running, you're doing an event, but you're not covering it? How do you kind of switch that off?
Cape Town Marathon's a pretty good one for that.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Cape Town Marathon. So you were obviously competing, not covering it.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
It was, the race itself wasn't necessarily the day I wanted to have, which is fine. It's my first road marathon in years and my first road marathon with a proper start line. It was like, I think my expectations were possibly too high on myself, which is fine. It happens. We all go through that. I didn't have media FOMO, which is cool. That was a nice experience where there was none of that like work stress leading into it from being involved in the event, specifically to the road marathon side. And racing, it kind of felt like I was giving my running a chance, which is it's nice. Like that's being able to race makes it easier to work an event because you know the feelings and the emotions.
Yeah.
And a big one for the year is always it's always valuable for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. I was actually I did a race this morning, and I was chatting to someone just about the media kind of side of it, and the fact that if you haven't run, especially in terms of trail running, like if you haven't experienced that, it's very hard to kind of cover it from a media point of view. Like, why do you think that is?
I think it's relatable. Like, what the emotions are leading into it. I did my UTD last year.
Yeah.
I really used the experience of what I went through running 100 kilometers in covering a 100-kilometer race because you understand the emotions. You don't just know them. And that's before the race, that's during the race, that's the relief and the reward afterwards. Everything is easier to tell. A story is easier to tell if you can relate to it.
Yeah.
And I think it just makes it more authentic.
Speaking on that and kind of going back to the envisioning thing, do you kind of do research on the events, in terms of that, and do you have kind of specific topics and things you want to ask people, or is it kind of like you get into the race and you're like, let's see what kind of unfolds?
It depends on the race itself. A lot of the events that I've covered, I've been involved in, whether it's running or knowing the space and the environment of the race specifically. I think each event has its own flavor, its own voice, and trying to talk through that voice, if that makes sense, is something that I really strive for. I feel like that's not answering your question.
No, it's good. And if we kind of look at your journey, I guess your running journey, but also your kind of professional journey, where did this all kind of start? Take me back to the beginning. I guess we can talk running and copywriting or the written stuff, and then the trail running. Where did that intersection happen?
I don't actually know where the intersection happened. My running journey started March 2020.
So
COVID runner.
Yeah, me too.
And then I ran the virtual edition of Cape Town Marathon.
Yeah.
about 7 or 8 months after I started running. And then after, because I was on the road, then after that, I went to the trail for, well, I guess up until last year. Like, I feel like I'm a road runner at the moment. And trail's always good. It's always hard. It's always good though.
Yeah.
Working in the space has been amazing. So rewarding.
Yeah.
And I guess being involved as a runner, you know what is going on, you know the people. And yeah, like the intersection, I can't identify where and when. Yeah. But I guess it was like a little puzzle piece.
Yeah.
Just fitting.
And where are you currently in terms of work, in terms of, as you said, okay, so you're road running at the moment in terms of your running and work and what you're doing on that side?
Road running, so I'm post-marathon recovery now.
Yeah.
I do think that I'll be on the road for racing next year. And I do want to be more on the mountain. I feel like it's lacked this year, both in like my life and in my training. Trails keep you strong. Road makes you like it's a different sort of hard.
Yeah.
And blending those two together will be really good, both for work and I'm much more involved in the trail space. I'd love to get involved in the road scene. I think there's so much there, and it's rich in everything from diversity of culture, diversity of pace, performance. Like there are more people on the road. It's more accessible, and I think there's a lot that can be told, and there's a lot that is being told. So I'd like to get involved in the road. I love the trail though. The people are so special. Mountain people are different. Yeah, I guess we'll see what next year holds from both fronts.
The kind of, I usually ask this at the end, but kind of what is the vision? What is the, if you look into the kind of the future, what does that look like, in terms of your work, in terms of running?
The future is really broad. I try, I've never really been a 5-year plan type of person. I've been saying 2025 is the year of the video. I want to do a lot more video work next year.
Yeah.
I want to see what unofficial events can be brought, not necessarily onto the calendar. Do some stuff.
Okay.
In unofficial rat race type thing.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
So
yeah,
we'll see what happens there as well.
Sure.
And the vision of the future is just to do more of what I'm doing. I'm really enjoying it. And I guess humans tend to evolve. So I might not be doing this in 4 or 5 years.
Redo it in 4 or 5 years. And if you kind of look back, I guess, since 2020 when you started running, do you have kind of moments or particular events or achievements that really stand out for you?
Yes. All of them.
All of them, yeah.
Yeah. Running 100 kilometers is one that really stands out. That was brutal.
Yeah.
Something that I wouldn't necessarily do again soon. Something that I will do again for me. Running a marathon, running Cape Town was also really big. The first ultra stands out as well. That was UTD 2021. Racing in Chamonix is a highlight that stands out.
Yeah.
And these are all race goals, or race achievements.
Yeah.
There are work achievements as well. There were some segments from, I think it was last year or the year before, where we did little badges for everyone that finished.
That was amazing.
And those badges, I did the design behind, and seeing something that I designed in tangible that people could hold was really cool.
Yeah.
Seeing my work just recently, a photo that I took printed on a window was also those are the things that I can pinpoint as big achievements.
And when you see those things, what are those feelings?
Kind of surreal. I'm like, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I never want to let anything get to my head. I think that's where a lot of danger comes in with his ego. But I'm like, that's cool. I'm really proud of that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you get that same feeling when you see, an article that you've written in like a magazine or online or something like that? Is it kind of a similar kind of feeling?
Yeah, I think so. If it's something that I poured a lot of myself into, more so. But if it's like almost, I guess, someone taking a chance on you, being like, you can do that. Let's see that.
Yeah.
Like seeing it always in something tangible is it hits a little bit.
Yeah. And the 100K, what was the what was the goal? What was the idea? Is it just what was the thinking around it and the process and the, I guess, afterwards, the reflection?
Oh, I mean, the reflection is like lifelong, it feels like.
Yeah.
So it was UTD, Ultra Trail Drakensberg, and the first ultra I did was the 62 kilometer, actually 64 kilometer, and along the Giants Cup Trail, beautiful, highly recommend it to anybody. And then the next year I did that race again, and it's one of the best races I've ever had. And I was gonna either do the 62 again, it's now 65, but the 62 then again, or the 100. And because I had such a good race the year before, I kind of wanted to leave it at that and take the step to add another marathon on. The furthest I'd run before that was UTCT 65.
Sure.
Back when UTCT had a 65.
Yeah.
And back when, it was like 2 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just an extra 35 Ks, knowing that it's not. It's not at all.
Yeah.
And experiencing it, it was the 76K mark where I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't want to take another step, let alone 25 kilometers more. And like it starts in the dark. You go in, when the course was up the Sani Pass first, like sunrise over the escarpment, so special. And you're running down the Sani Pass, and then a full day running, and then into the night. And 76 kilometers was like such a pinpoint low moment. It was 11 p.m. and I was like, I've got a full night ahead of me.
Yeah.
I was paced by Julian for like 16 Ks before that, and this was the moment where he was like leaving me to go into the mountain. And like the previous kilometers had been a lot of farm village roads, so like flat, runnable, and the next 25 Ks were back onto the mountain. The course is different now. It's like way less farm road and way more mountain. It's amazing. Anyway, the last 25 Ks I knew would be difficult because it would be by myself. It would be night, and it would be like way more mountainous without having the views of the mountain as well. And just getting out the aid station was like a 45-minute mental battle. I felt really sick. And I was tired, like not just body tired, but I was like, I want to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of sleeping, but I want to sleep. And running along the like plateau, whatever it was, like probably not a plateau.
Yeah.
But I was like, I just want to sleep.
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes under my space blanket.
Yeah.
I took some caffeine, and I ran like home basically into the sun. The sun had just risen. So it was two sunrises.
Sure.
It was not a fast race.
Yeah.
But everyone, it was kind of waking up. So it was a somewhat fuller finish line than if it was in the night. And that was also really special. So
Sure.
I cried a few times throughout the race. I cried at the finish line.
Yeah.
And it's also not a race that necessarily went the way I wanted it, but for 100 Ks, is it often?
No.
So as the first one, like, and the only one that I've done, I'm still just like, it's pretty cool. to have done it.
Was there kind of one thing that when you were in that aid station at that low moment that really like was just like, you know, I've got to finish this. I've got to get it done. Was there?
Yeah, the aid station captain, she was like, do you want some soup? Yes, I want some soup. Then I got the cup and I was like, I don't want soup.
Yeah.
Do you want some potatoes? Took the potato. I don't want potatoes. And one of the 100-miler runners had come through because the last 25Ks are shared. And she was like, this young lady is thinking of maybe dropping out. Like she lowered her voice, but I still heard it. I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Time to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like that was the one thing that was like, okay, enough dilly-dallying.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
She definitely did that on purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah. And, you know, in that, looking back on that, you know, has it kind of made you realize the kind of the importance of the kind of the support around the race and, you know, what everyone kind of provides in terms of that, like the volunteers, in terms of, you know, like that it's so much more than kind of just the logistical kind of stuff that they're doing, you know, it's that support element is so important.
Yeah.
And did that give you a bit more of a perspective? Obviously, you know, you have been involved, you know how important it is, but being in that moment, did it give you like a bit more of a perspective?
Yeah, big time. I think that came about 55Ks in where I wasn't sure where the next aid station was specifically because like my watch was saying a different thing to what the race bib, because they had the race bib and the timing like cut off, and I was like, I'm gonna get cut off. And then like kind of cried my way into the aid station, worrying about cut off at the next aid station. Like I was like, I don't have the energy to put foot here. And then the person at the aid station there was like, no, you're totally fine. Like,
Okay.
don't trust that.
Yeah.
Trust me. I was like, okay. So like he was an instrumental part of my race.
Yeah.
Because it also was like Julian, it was like at the time was also like, you're fine.
Yeah.
And hearing the two voices settled me.
Yeah.
Also got me out. And that race specifically is really interesting because you're in the deep mountain. It's really remote for a lot of the time. So seeing the people, especially when there's not that many runners around you, seeing people and it's like a scrap of civilization. Like it does stand out. And everyone's giving up their weekend to be there for nothing but love of the space and the community and the people. And like that's so cool. And experiencing it is always something pretty magical.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely gives you a new perspective, you know, because often when you're kind of supporting or volunteering, it doesn't feel like you're making a huge difference. You know, you kind of just, you think you're cheering and you know,
it's just fun.
Like, it's like vibes, you know, but when you're actually experiencing that and you're in that kind of moment, I think it definitely does give you that unique kind of perspective. And for you, what makes, you know, the trail running community so special?
Good question. Not an easy one to answer. I think it's just that like everything. I think there is just this, especially in Cape Town. I don't know if it is in pockets of the world, but it's not like this where I've been with the crew culture is big and it just brings people together from all different backgrounds. The club culture as well, it's different, but it also brings people together in a way that others don't. Like sport in general is such a unifying thing.
Yeah.
And running, more road running than trail running is really accessible. And like with that comes a unity that kind of breaks, I guess, barriers. And
Cape Town specifically, why do you think that we have this? Is it, I mean, you know, like I definitely agree with you. And I had Bianca on here yesterday, and also like she was like, can't compare Cape Town to anywhere else. Like it's just so special. What do you kind of attribute that to? Yeah, I think it's such a layered thing. We've got a history of running. We've got a history of like people coming against conflict, and like I feel like I can't like talk too much to that with you know, there's this history of working together, whether it's against something or whether it's just working together. And I think that and
unifying aspect of sport. Like Comrades is world renowned. It's the oldest.
Yeah.
I think it's the. I don't want to say something that's not true
no,
that I should know. But I think it's the oldest like ultra marathon in the world.
Yeah.
Like there's such a history of running in Africa, but South Africa just has something special, and I think it's just everything about it.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I've never actually thought about that kind of unifying. There's definitely that, and then when you kind of add that, I guess, to the shared suffering of the trails, does make for something quite special. And when you're kind of working an event, and you're obviously covering it, how do you balance between covering, supporting, cheering, and providing, like you want to get the moment, but you also want to make sure, like people are supported and comforted and you're obviously right in the heart of it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think they all really go well with each other. By covering their event, you're supporting the people.
Yeah.
It's almost like by doing one, you're doing the other. By being out on the trail, if you're out on the trail, you're there supporting, whether you've got your camera in someone's face or not.
Yeah.
And shouting loud behind the camera at the same time. It's like it's not too difficult to. It's not something that needs a lot of siloing almost.
Amazing. And do you find that those things kind of fill your cup?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you kind of, is that kind of from a mental perspective, does that like kind of refresh you? And, I guess, how do you then kind of switch off from all of that?
So difficult.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if you've ever had the post-race blues. It's big time in the workspace as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Because that's like your work.
Yeah, it's like it's so, because it's so much adrenaline and so much stimulation.
Yeah.
It's hard to switch off because I also don't know if I want to. Like I kind of want to ride the high.
Yeah.
No matter what I'm doing at the event.
Yeah.
And I think like there's two different types. The way I kind of structure it or see it. Like there's two different types of the race coverage, specifically on social media. There's like the race coverage that starts on the Friday and ends on the Sunday. And then for some brands, for some events, I'll do that like in and out type coverage. And then there's the coverage where you are part of the build-up and you're part of the post-race recap, the storytelling that comes after that, all that sort of thing. And having that post-race thing, I think, helps keep that fan, I guess, going. It never feels like a bad thing, though.
Yeah. For me, the thing then would be, like, when do you kind of get to the burnout stage? I think that, then it's like you're just pushing because you're loving it. And then, like I'm feeling it at the moment, definitely with all the, obviously being new to this whole thing and, with all the races happening at the moment, like, I'm loving it and I love being in the space, but I can definitely feel that like burnout is,
there's only so much fan
there.
that can go around or flame that can go around.
Yeah.
I guess it depends what else is going out in the background of life.
Yeah.
Like if there's a lot of stress outside of that one thing, it makes it harder to go from thing to thing. Yeah, it's definitely a factor. How to resolve it is not a question I don't know how to answer yet.
And do you find that running, because of like the workspace, like I definitely struggle as well with, where running's meant to be your escape, but it often is not. And are you able to are you able to use it as an escape and, use it for like the purpose that most people kind of use it for?
Yes,
okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So I run every day.
Okay.
So there's a degree of having to. And once I'm in it, then things kind of make sense. But because I have to, it forces me to get into that makes sense thing. I think also like because I'm so involved in the trail space, running on the road has helped. There's no magic cure, I guess, to it, but it is something that's worth taking stock of is how much of the one thing in your life is everything. Because I think having a break of sorts, it's all running.
Yeah.
Whether you're on the tar or the dirt, like it's running.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah.
And there's different people and different, so like finding your escape within the thing that you're kind of makes up so many aspects of your life.
And what would you say to people in terms of, like getting into that kind of space, and kind of being able to kind of switch off, are there kind of specific things that you do, to kind of get into that space?
What space?
Into the kind of like, okay, I'm running, it's time, like I'm not going to focus on work. I'm not going to focus on anything else.
Oh, no, I have no advice that I can say because I'll be a hypocrite. I won't follow it.
Yeah.
Just run.
Yeah.
Just like, don't think, run.
Mm.
And often that's what happens. It's like even in a race, when you're overthinking the race, it happens all the time. Like not necessarily focusing on what you shouldn't do, but focusing on what you are doing.
Yeah, being present.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned you run every day. What is that about?
What is that about?
Yeah.
I started last year, January the 1st, and I said I'm doing every single day this year. So it was a 365 project as well.
Yeah.
You'll know about that now.
I'm on like day 12 and I'm ready to like call it quits. So I don't know how.
Don't just keep going.
Yeah.
I have like not failed. I want to say failed. I have not succeeded in a 365 project before. It happens.
Yeah.
Keep going though.
Yeah.
So I was going to run every single day last year, and then sometime in December, I said if I run on the 1st of January, 2024, I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
And then I took my dogs for a run.
Yeah.
So here I am, 600 and something days in.
Oh, wow.
And it's a lot easier to keep going than it is to stop.
Yeah.
It's like my minimum is 3 kilometers.
And is it just autopilot now?
Like, pretty much. There's a little loop at home.
Yeah.
If I need to do it, then I do it.
And is it still providing that kind of, if you go back, is it still providing that kind of fulfillment and that, are you still in that kind of the reason why you kind of started it? Yeah,
I can't really remember why I started it.
Yeah.
I saw there's an athlete in America. His name is Hella. On Instagram, it's Hella Good. He's a Hoka athlete as well, and he's like 2,000 or something days in. And I obviously don't know him, but his energy is really good. And I find like his energy pretty contagious. And he's got the run streak. I don't know what his minimum is. Like he'll do 100 miles and then run the next day.
Sure.
And seeing that, I was like, I want to try that and see what happens. And I just really enjoyed the like, every day you have something that you have to do, like the discipline, I guess, that goes into it. Like 20 minutes is not an enormous amount of time of your day, and making sure you tick that box.
Yeah.
It's, like I can't say why I started it. Can't tell you why I keep going, but just do.
Yeah. And the lessons learned have been transferable. So I guess
totally
job done there.
Yeah. And like, job, I guess, is a great word to use. Like, kind of tell myself, well, if I can run today, I can do this task in work. If I can run, I can do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, I can have that conversation, or I can do that. Like, it is transferable across life aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also a great way, like, tick it off, and then it's like, okay, well, you're in it now type thing.
In the morning is so much easier.
Yeah. No, I'm also finding that. I'm also don't leave it late.
Like the only time I rely on someone is if it's like 11 p.m. and I can't go by myself at 11 p.m. and then I just make Julian grumpy because he has to come for a 3K run.
Yeah. No, there always will be kind of those days.
Yeah.
The evolution of I'm blown away by how like trail running is kind of just like, obviously you can talk as well. When I started at the beginning of COVID, trail running, like it wasn't really a big thing. Like not that I remember. And even running, it wasn't as big as it is now. So yeah, what is your kind of perspective on that evolution and that growth?
My response is going to sound like a really strange starting point. Did you ever play GTA?
Yeah.
You know, when you were driving a car, like a super special car, and then suddenly it's everywhere in the game. I think it's a little bit like that. So because you're in it now, you realize how big it actually is. Running specifically, trail running has grown, but I think running specifically, you're in it so you see it. But it's always been a huge thing in the world. Trail running has grown. I think it's like you see it possibly more openly because you're paying a lot of attention to it. I think that there's still a lot of growth to happen, which is so exciting. It's becoming more professional. We see that in the teams. We see that in the brands that are supporting the space, whether it's the events or the athletes. So sports industries, like they tend to follow money, and we're seeing more money in the sport, which means that it has the opportunity to grow professionally from the athlete side. Like more people can compete. Makes it more competitive, makes it more exciting to watch, makes it more attractive for brands. So it's snowballing, I think. I don't want to say something with too much confidence. I don't know thoroughly the research behind it, but I think it's still, to a degree, it's still a fringe sport. It's definitely moving into a more, I don't want to say corporate, because I think the mountain and corporate kind of conflict. And that's a really weird thing to see, especially in the trail politics with bigger events vying for airtime and athlete attention. That's definitely a factor.
I think that's definitely becoming a lot more present as well. That there's only, I think the biggest thing is there's only obviously so many days in the year, but also there are only kind of certain times that, you know, like that are ideal for kind of trail running. So it's definitely becoming like I was also like today when I was running with someone, it's like he thought more people would be at this race this morning. And it's just like people can't do
everything.
Like, everything. It's just,
especially like, I think the rate of injury obviously is high enough in running. Doing back-to-back events, if you're running harder, you're going to risk injuring yourself possibly more. The ultra distances, I think trail running is really founded on the ultra distances. I don't think that the shorter distances are given. In fact, I know they're not given as much attention and space, and so the ultra distances get the coverage, the airtime, and there's only so many ultra distances people can run in a year. Unless you're Thomas, but
exactly.
Like the recovery time, it means that people have to be way more savvy with what they choose. They can't just do everything. If they do, then they're going to hurt themselves.
And how important is that? Speaking of it, you know, how important to events is attracting like the kind of the top talent?
Pretty important.
It's
part of the storytelling. You're telling their story in your story as well. And like as simple as global reach. If someone with a huge following talks about an event, it's going to extend the reach to their following as well. The engagement on posts that have like a collaboration, good grief, with someone that has a high following, like, you know, you're obviously going to get that engagement as well from their following. So super valuable to an event.
Speaking of that, you know, when you're approaching these kind of events, do you have a different approach to the way you would approach elites to the way you would approach kind of back of the packers, average?
Like in person?
Yeah.
I try not to. The easiest thing to someone is that you know their name. Like I might, if it's a chum, then I'll know their name. I don't know everyone.
Yeah,
so.
especially not the elites, the foreign elites.
Well, the elites like you tend to know them more readily because they're everywhere in media.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't necessarily know everyone. Well, I mean, of course I don't. But
You know quite a few people.
So it's always easier to talk to someone you know, or at least someone that you can address with a name.
Yeah.
But I even like if I'm interacting as me, I try not to. Like everyone's a person.
Yeah.
Whether you're setting a 5K in 30 minutes or 15, 12, like you're still a human with insecurities and strengths and weaknesses and proud moments. But like in media coverage, it is going to be different. You're following one versus like,
Have you struggled with, I think for me, a big struggle is focusing on the kind of the elite side of it, like if you only have so much capacity, and you kind of put all your effort into focusing on the winners and the elites, you kind of, you don't really make time for the kind of the rest of the field and those stories. Do you kind of struggle with that balance in your kind of coverage that you kind of get? I suppose you quite experienced now in it, but like, do you ever get like kind of sucked into the like, oh, these are the winners, but you forget about kind of like the stories that come at the back, or you kind of like, these are kind of the gold mine stories?
Definitely, I think any person that's doing a race has a gold mine story somewhere. It completely depends on the event and the competition and who's running. A competitive race at the end of the day is a competitive race.
Yeah.
And who's winning it is the person that everybody wants to know about.
Yeah.
So always bearing that in mind is important. So it depends what story you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
If it's, I want to tell the mid-pack story, then focusing on that, and then someone else can cover the front. Yeah. If there's multiple media roles, I guess. I think an event is also like, it's the race. In Cape Town, it's the landscape. It's the people. It's the grit. Like, bearing all that in mind and doing as much justice to all of that. It is a balance. It's always going to be.
Yeah. And I suppose also, your kind of job description as well is obviously very dependent on that as well.
Yeah.
And you've obviously been super involved in the crew side of it. So let's chat a bit about that, and, how has that kind of developed? What kind of draws you to it? Talk to me about your involvement there.
Involvement is kind of participatory.
Yeah.
Like I just want to be with people.
Yeah.
I get a lot of FOMO really quickly. And I just, like, especially people that I know in the crews, like, I just dig being around them. On the trail running side, I've been a bit rubbish this year at attending crew things. Right now I'm not involved in any behind the scenes for any communities or crews. So it's strictly being a participant.
Yeah.
It's also really cup filling.
Yeah.
You get a social fix and you get to run. What's better than that?
Yeah.
And like track on a Thursday with Muslove Hills, and you get to get a speed session in.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to, like, if I'm tired, then I can just leave. Like,
yeah. No, it's so true about that kind of dual. Like if you tick one of those boxes, I mean, if you tick both, it's great. But if you tick both of those boxes, like if you tick one of those boxes, like, okay, I've at least done that kind of one thing. And obviously you're involved quite a bit in the kind of social media. What role, going back to the kind of the evolution of the trail and, just how it's grown, what I think I kind of look at it from a perspective of trail running is so much more accessible now because of people like you that are, telling these kind of stories and making it look so cool. What role do you think that has kind of played in the development of it?
Yes, I mean, a vital one.
Mm. Mm. You think it's a lot more accessible now to people, that they're actually able to kind of see and get that information?
Yeah, like you don't have to stalk someone's Strava to know where someone came.
Yeah.
It goes kind of beyond a tracking app
Mm.
because you get to see what the landscape looks like.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of races that I've watched. Western States, obviously, like never been anywhere along the course, but I kind of know what pockets of it look like. And that's media, like that's pure media.
Yeah.
I know who's got the records there, and that's just tracking apps, but pure media. And like it definitely makes it more accessible to engaging, not necessarily participating in, but definitely engaging with it from the comfort of your own couch, which, I guess that does open up complete global access depending on the coverage of the event. Social media specifically, that's different to a broadcast. They go very closely together. They're both media, but social media is like, you're kind of talking to a person from something that they're holding. And like, I think people's relationship with their phone is like, it's got a weird intimacy. Like, first thing I grab when I leave my home is my phone and then my keys.
Yeah.
Left my car keys in my home this morning.
So you didn't leave your phone?
No, it was around my body on my lanyard. And so like, you're kind of talking to them from that thing that their friends talk to them through. So it's bringing something far away right to their hand. And that definitely plays a role in global access.
What do you love about social media?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes
do you
nothing.
Have a love-hate? Is there love-hate?
Yeah, I think anyone that works in social media does have it. You might attest to that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
What do I love about it? That access. I've connected with so many cool people, like just from a personal capacity through social media. And like, I'm sure in a day and age where there was no social media, you'll have those connections in a completely different way. But like, if I can look at the things that I've done and the people that I've met through that easy connection, like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We don't have to go into the dark side of social media, like the cons. I try in, I guess, my personal life, I try to pay more attention to the things that are beneficial. I try to reduce my screen time, which makes it count when I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
I think the connection is the thing that's the best thing social media can offer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like, I wish you could do like work screen time and like, because it's like my screen time is obviously terrible, but it's like because of the work aspect. And it's like, I'm not really like, that's always a challenge. And talking about the different kind of mediums, do you think it's an evolution or do you think they kind of live side by side in terms of photo, video, written word?
Oh, they all are connected, I think, at least in the way that I engage with and look to create. You can write however many words, and if that's not accompanied by a visual, it tells a completely different thing. The algorithm dictates a lot with what people tend to engage with because it's what's pushed more. Video at the moment just does tend to perform better, so we're seeing more of it, we're generating more of it. Written word, I think, is like people are in for a quick fix. So reading a 1,000-word article is going to be difficult. Yeah. Watching a quick video that might tell a similar story is easier. So trying to incorporate all of that, like really powerful copy with a powerful image can reduce me to tears. And those two things together, I think neither of them have the same punch. Yeah. So I think media, like it's always going to be this blend, an evolving blend of what people are engaging with the most, and like whatever the agenda of the top dog metas want to push. Yeah, like, I know we're at the behest of what they want.
How do you kind of, I guess I would say, like deal with that in terms of when you want to create something and then I guess it just doesn't do well, or it's not doing well, or and that like that's not what the algorithm wants. How do you kind of deal with that? You kind of push through because it's filling you personally, or is it like we've got to kind of chase the algorithm?
Is this me like Becky _Leighton, or is this me?
No, you
working.
Yeah.
Like I'd like to say that I don't pay attention to it too much. If I put a lot of work into something and it doesn't like perform, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't put a huge amount of stock into my own personal social media account in terms of like my emotional attachment to how well something does. Because I think that if I do, like it's a slippery slope to like, that little hit of validation.
Yeah.
Someone liking it.
Yeah.
So having an outlet to worry about where it's more work focused is really helpful for that. And then it's also like, you don't have that emotional attachment to it's not me that people aren't engaging with.
Yeah.
So I try not to think about it too much.
And talking about the work front, how do you have those kind of conversations? Because I guess most brands or events or things, they want the likes and the shares and the follows and things like that. So how do you have that conversation? Or do you find that it's quite in sync with what you're wanting to do and what's generating or making the algorithm happy?
Yeah. I think as long as it's authentic and I think the algorithm will be happy with what you pay it.
Yeah.
Which is not organic.
Yeah.
That's in paid social media, which I don't really engage with. Like that's a completely different kettle of fish that's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. Nor is it something that I look to do. Yeah, it's like what the client wants as well.
Yeah.
If it's content every day, then it's content every day.
Yeah.
Then the engagement is almost secondary to that.
Yeah.
If it's engagement purely, then it's like looking at what people tend to engage, like the audience of the brand, of the account, what they tend to lean towards, and then doing more of that. You're obviously going to get a post that goes badly and then you're going to get a post that does amazingly. So trying to do as much from a like metric point of view while staying true to whatever the voice of the brand, the event is.
Going back to, that kind of personal social media, do you feel that, your personal brand needs to be built up, needs to be, is that something you are trying to work on, or is it kind of you're quite happy to be like freelancing or are you kind of trying to establish yourself as kind of a brand?
I don't know. Yeah. It's something it is difficult. It's something that I give thought to. More thought than action, I guess. But I think that a personal brand is like it. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's not something that I've looked to build up in terms of the metrics of followers and engagement on my own account. But personal brand, like photography and getting hired by this person to like that goes beyond the social media metrics, I guess. So I think there's always a degree of looking to build personal brand, whether that's in the portfolio or in like tinkering on social media with this design and that design on my personal account.
Yeah.
Either because it's a creative, like those little hex code color things.
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily to build up any sort of branding, creative outlet type thing.
Yeah.
What I learned there, I can, if it works, I can implement it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to be the best I can be.
Yeah.
For who I work for.
Yeah.
For myself as well.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily looking at the metrics on my account.
Yeah.
Specifically.
And then when it comes to, working at these events, is it in terms of that, is it kind of you're happy to be behind the scenes working the event, or is there kind of an aspect of I'd love to be doing this, as doing my own thing, covering this event?
I also don't know. I think that the event itself is generally what people are going to look at first for updates.
Yeah.
So if there's an established presence that the event has on a media platform, that's going to be what people pay attention to.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the best way to tell the story, because it's where eyes are. But if there's an event that doesn't, which we know in local races, is sometimes the case.
Yeah.
I've kind of been toying with ideas of where to generate coverage beyond where it might be in the smaller events where you want to know what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd use my account for that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. No, it's a super interesting point, because there is definitely I don't want to say like a have and have nots, but there's definitely like quite a big gap.
Yeah.
Between the kind of more established races and the, how do we kind of bridge that? Is it kind of, as you say, just about a money thing, or is there something else that's kind of driving it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think money it's easier to pay people to do a thing than it is to not. And then like some events just suit or welcome being underground. Like,
yeah.
Keeps it special in a way.
Yeah.
Some don't necessarily think about it or just don't know the approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the person behind managing. Yeah.
You find that most of the events you kind of work with are the ones that kind of get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's much easier to do it when they kind of give you that creative freedom and trust you to kind of get the job done.
Yeah.
And where do you kind of see the future going? Like where are we going in terms of trail running in general and in Cape Town when you look at it? Is it like more races? Is it more organization? Is it more people?
I don't know. I think more races are just going to fill the calendar and it's not necessarily going to bring more people in. You'll just get more events with thinner start lines.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it's worthwhile for the space. I think obviously there's some events that are super beginner friendly. There are some events that aren't, and more space for more people to enter the space, I think, is what's going to grow it the most. That's accessible in terms of close to a lot of people. That's accessible in terms of the cost and like how easy is it to get people to the start line.
Yeah.
Like, can you go and pick people up? Because I think that's where like you'll get access comes in like a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
There's access to attract people that can start somewhere, and then there's access in terms of barriers to get there. And in South Africa, we obviously have barriers.
Yeah.
And I think that goes like beyond events, that goes into greater support from people, from brands, from events as well. Greater financial inclusion.
Yeah.
Which is, like I'm wary of talking into that because I don't want to say something that's not like how I want to say it.
Yeah.
I think that greater access is to people. And in South Africa, that's everyone. The mountain is less, in terms of racing specifically, is less available than the road, simply down to numbers, where it caps at, call it 500 people in an event on the trail, it's going to cap at 18,000 on the road.
Yeah.
And that's going to shift the entry price. And also it just means that one sells out.
Yeah.
I mean, both sell out, but one sells out quicker.
Yeah.
One sells out different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to reach like a tipping point where there's just too many races happening and it's just, are we going to get to that point?
I don't really know what too many races might look like, though. Too many races would be like no one on any start lines.
Yeah.
Or runners just completely burnt out. So I think that it's like there's also competition with crews putting on events and FKTs and segments. There's like the calendar is so full already. So too many races, like maybe not. It depends what those races and events, like the audience that they want to attract. I don't think that there can be too many because it's likely that they'll just one will replace another. And those gaps will be filled.
Speaking of that kind of, I guess the evolution and the growth with crew collabs, with things like that have now started competing with races, what are your kind of personal thoughts around that? Do you think it's only positive, or do you think that there is kind of like, I was speaking to a race organizer who was like, they're really struggling because of these, like basically people can run every weekend for free now. And obviously you get free beer and you get free, it's almost become like a race. With all the support. And so is there kind of like a negative side? And
it depends on which side of the fence you are. If you're a race organizer, like there's so many negative sides. If you're a person that wants to run free on the mountain with a bunch of people, there's positives. So like I think with anything in life, there's pros and cons. Being in the event space in this capacity, like there's a delicate balance. I think races have more credibility to a result than an FKT where it's not established. There are, of course, official FKTs, but in a race, you're racing against the people next to you. And in a segment, you're racing a time. And so like it's a completely different space, but there's only so much capacity and time, energy that people can have. So you can't go hard on a segment and then the next day go, well, unless you're like David Fick who just racing every weekend. The downside is definitely that events are struggling, and it's sad to see. The upside is that there's an opportunity for more people to come into the space. But if that doesn't go into the racing space, then to what end in terms of event organization? Sport, I think, is always very often defined by the competition. And if there's not that competition, then it's hard to quantify like how the sport is doing. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think it's like also like maybe, I think races in South Africa, like they've had it good because they haven't had this kind of like this competition, and now they're obviously needing to kind of reflect on what they're kind of offering, and how can they be kind of a bit more innovative.
Well, that's it. Like anything where it shakes things up, it keeps even clubs are struggling compared to crews. You have to pay a fee and you don't get free beer on a Thursday run. Like, the incentive outside of a permanent license. But I mean, I love the club that I run for. Very, very, very infrequently run with. But I can completely see why crews are stealing people from clubs. And clubs are going to have to keep up. It's the same in eventing. What are they going to do to keep up? It's a hard question to answer.
And what is your involvement with Hoka?
Oh, they support my running.
Okay. That's very cool. How did that come about?
Ian Peterkin, Hoka athlete here. Put in a good word, and then they got in touch with me, and
amazing.
Now I wear Hoka.
Amazing. How's it been? How long have you been with them?
Like a year and a half, 2 years.
And
2.5 years, somewhere there.
And how's it been?
Good. I love the product. I always have. I ran in Hoka before any support. And I really like their branding, and the people that they support from the front to the mid-pack to the back. It's very cool to see that.
Yeah.
Way more relatable for me. Not at the front.
Yeah.
And like they're in track, they're in road, they're in trail. So it's super accessible for me to use the product as well.
Yeah. That's very cool. It's very cool to see, you know, that, the support is like across the line. And do you have people that you kind of look up to in the South African trail or running space?
In general, or in Hoka?
No, in general.
Yes. Daniel Claassen was a superhuman.
Yeah.
Works 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Dominates on the field and like cracks open a beer. Like he's just such a down to earth dude. Like I really dig him.
Yeah.
It's the first person that came to mind.
Yeah.
There are obviously others. Carla's great. I know you had her on the podcast.
Yeah.
She's also like, she's so fast and such a weapon and so feisty.
Yeah.
But always has time for people.
Yeah.
And that's Kif. The trail space, like Mbuyisi, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
Eastern Cape, like he also works so hard.
Yeah.
And will take a start line, like I think he ran the Dodo in Mauritius.
Yeah.
He ran the 50K. I ran the 25K and he passed me like running up a hill covered in mud. We all were, but like, I think when he passed me, it was maybe 30Ks into his race. And he was in 13th. He was in ninth place. He was top 10. And then over the last 20Ks, he overtook 6 people.
Yeah.
So finished on the podium. Knows how to race, is super strategic.
Yeah.
And works like so hard in everything he does.
Yeah.
So like I just look up to him. Complete inspiration.
Yeah. He's also been around for a long time, which I found super interesting as well. Because this guy is one of those like 10-year success story, overnight success story, 10 years in the making.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from the track as well. Like he's got like a stupid fast 800 meter. Yeah. And like that translates, obviously, speed kills on trails as well.
Yeah. No, he's definitely someone that we want to get on here. But obviously it's I think it's that how do you kind of make what are your thoughts on the rest of South Africa in terms of trail running? And obviously Cape Town, we have a super strong community. Do you think that the growth has been as strong outside of South Africa?
Outside of Cape Town?
Yeah.
I mean, being in Cape Town, I see it closest in Cape Town, but there are huge close-knit communities across the country that I know about. But I don't know how they've grown because I haven't been able to experience it.
Yeah.
So, yes, to the extent I don't know.
Yeah. Going back to the Dodo in Mauritius, and you did mention that travel was one of your kind of passions. So what is it like kind of doing that travel and race? Is that kind of the goal, or is it just travel in general that is driving you?
Yes.
Okay.
Find a race that I like in a place that I want to go to and then go and do it. That's how Dodo came about.
Amazing.
Now that I run park runs, all of the 4 that I've ever done, I want to go and find park runs and then just go like travel to the park run.
Yeah.
I think
marathons.
A race.
You run marathons now. You can go do your 6 stars. No, it's nearly 7 stars.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
Cape Town's ticked. So when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've entered the lottery for Berlin Marathon.
Amazing.
I'll find out on the 5th of December if I get in.
Yeah.
I'd really like to do some abroad marathons. And in my work breaks, browse through international races that I want to do. I think running is just so integral that traveling alongside it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it makes it a little bit stressful. Depends on the expectation. So OCC, when I ran OCC, that was the reason for the holiday, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And so the holiday was a little bit stressful and I couldn't completely engage until the race was done. And then I had like all of the time to play with afterwards. Not necessarily all of the energy. But if it's a holiday with a race, then it's just finding the fun.
Yeah, it's a nice balance. Do you kind of go race holiday or holiday race?
I would like to holiday race.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Berlin would be a race holiday.
Okay. Yeah. I think I would go race holiday.
Okay.
Because it's just like that stress before the race. Like, I don't know. It's,
Oh, from that aspect, definitely race holiday.
Yeah. Okay. Glad we're on the same page there. And have you had any kind of memorable experiences or like conversations with people, you know, in the kind of the workspace that really kind of resonate or stick out? You know, when you're kind of interviewing people or chatting to people during races?
Admire after UTD.
Yeah.
Not really an interview, but more of an interaction. He had just won the miler.
Yeah.
And it was like 4 years, I think, in the making of him taking the start line for the miler. He had tried to race a few years before and had to drop down to the 100K. And then he ran the 100K and came fourth that year. Ran the 100K again, came third. And so it was his first time. So him winning it was like layers of success and victory and emotion. And he went to, after the race, he went to go to the kitchen and said thank you to the head chef for preparing the meals before. And like seeing the chef come out in a wheelchair and like stand up and hug Admire, like not an interview, not necessarily a conversation, but that like, that will always stand out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And when, you know, people come up to you and say, you know, what is the kind of advice in terms of starting out running or starting out, you know, in the kind of the workspace and getting into like the social media side of it or the media side of it, are there kind of specific things that you can give, or is it just work hard and do it?
Work sustainably and do it. If you work hard, you can burn yourself out.
Yeah.
So work in a way that makes sense to you. Both sides.
Yeah.
Obviously running, if you're going to go clap a 10K every day from nothing, you're going to hurt yourself emotionally and physically. Don't want shin splints.
Yeah.
So don't want work version of shin splints. Like just do whatever you do.
Yeah.
In a way that keeps you going.
Yeah.
Rather full than drain.
Yeah. I love that. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah.
This was incredible.
Yeah, thanks.
Such a nice chat.
Yeah, good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feeling fired up after this incredible episode? Dive deeper into the world of trail running by exploring our other episodes, available wherever you get your podcasts. We're eagerly awaiting your feedback as well, so connect with us on Instagram @TrailChasersPod. Don't hold back. Like, comment, message, and share your thoughts. Until next week, keep chasing those trails.